We're really excited that y'all are here today. If you haven't connected with us in any way, we have a couple ways you can do it. We do have a website, Meetup. Hopefully, if you're here, you got it through the Meetup and you've already joined. If not, this is how you can join us and see all the other stuff that's going on with us. We are on Twitter. We are on Blue Sky, so you can follow us there. We try to make sure you get the announcements about when the next meetings are, and when we have our newsletter, we try to do that monthly. So please keep in touch. This is about creating a community for our data platform Women in Tech. We have a bunch of upcoming sessions for the first quarter of next year. It's weird to say it's next year. So hopefully you'll be able to join us for some of those. This is why keep up with Meetup. You'll get the events and we'd love to have you join us as well. We're really excited about all the speakers that we have coming up, including today's speaker, Code Like a Girl, Breaking the Gender Stereotype with Moran Weber. We're really excited to have Moran with us. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and I will turn things over to Moran.
Thank you, Deborah. All right, so let me just share my screen. All right, so can you see my screen now?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. Okay, so hi everyone. Before we start, I want us to play a little game. Please close your eyes and try to imagine in your mind's eye an image of a geek, or better yet, a computer geek. Okay, I don't know if we can have raising hands here on Teams, but please raise your virtual hand if you saw someone who looked like this. I can't see. Yeah, thanks, Deborah. Yeah, everyone. All right. So perhaps some of you maybe imagined someone who looks like this. Raise your hand if you did. Rebecca, your hand is still up. Did you imagine someone who looks like this? No. Okay. But I'm pretty sure no one here imagined someone who looks like this. Raise your hand, your virtual hand, if you did. And not even someone who looks like this. So this little exercise, this little game shows us what is a stereotype. So a stereotype is a predefined schema that sits in our mind about a certain group of people, and we use it to interpret the entire group. And today we're going to challenge and even break some of the stereotypes we hold about women and about technology. So hi, my name is Moran Weber. I'm the CEO and founder of Women on Stage. And for those of you who don't know us, Women on Stage is a global and public speaking training platform for professional women in tech to take the stage, share their knowledge, and inspire others to grow. In my previous background, I have 10 years of experience working as a software engineer. I was mainly working at Wix for many years. And other than that, I'm also a social psychologist, which means I have a master's degree in social psychology, which is a field that studies relationships and behaviors between social groups. And many of the data we'll discuss here today, and many of the research I will present here today is coming from research from this domain. But so going back to our little game from before, I have a confession to make. So the truth is that I am that computer geek. And I guess that all of you watch me here now or see me here in this photo where I'm giving a talk up on stage, looking pretty happy in front of hundreds of people. But the truth is that I could have never imagined any of this to happen, because not only I could have never dreamed being up on stage speaking in front of hundreds of people, I could barely open my mouth in mundane daily meetings at work because I was too afraid to raise my voice and being found out as a fraud, that famous imposter syndrome. And that all happened because I didn't look exactly like one of the guys, because I felt like I don't belong since I don't perfectly fit into that stereotypical image of the computer geek. So that was my starting point for founding Women on Stage and what brought me to do what I do. And I want to share a little bit more before we start. I want to share a little bit more about what we do at the Women on Stage platform. So first, we have the speaker platform for tech speakers and event organizers, where you can easily find over 900 qualified professional women speakers for your next tech event. Or you can join as a speaker to gain visibility, resources, skills, and even find public speaking opportunities. You can join us, it's completely free. And we also have our own in-house conferences and meetups in person or remotely online. And also our events are usually also free of charge. Additionally, we also train the next generation of women on stage at the Technical Speakers Academy, where we turn R&D professionals into keynote speakers at tech conferences worldwide. And lastly, we are currently working on Women on Stage 2.0, which is a tech product for public speaking training that will enable us to substantially scale our work. Because we strongly believe in the power of representation, namely, representation matters. And our mission statement is to amplify women in tech's voices on all stages of life, meaning both the physical, the digital, and the more metaphorical stage at work. Because we believe that if you can see it, you can be it. And that's how together we create a movement that inspires women to lead, grow, and speak up. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, it's no secret that women are highly underrepresented in tech. Globally, the numbers stay pretty much the same, and women hold only around a third of positions in tech companies and usually less than a quarter in R&D. So in the first part of my talk, we're going to challenge some base assumptions we might have and ask, is it a natural given fact? Is it a force sent from above and there's virtually nothing that can be done about it? And I'm going to give you a little spoiler alert here, and the answer is no. It's not a natural given fact. And in fact, it hasn't always even been this way. And there are many things that we can do to change that. So in the second part of my talk, we will focus on how to do that in every step of the career funnel. But first, let's take a small side note and ask, why should we even care? And why diversity matters. So it's not even about being altruistic. It's not because we're so kind, we're so generous, and we're so good. The fact is that diversity has a financial gain because companies benefit from diversity. For example, it has been found that companies with more women as board directors outperformed their parallel others by 53%. And the reason for that is that diversity improves the decision-making processes and enhances creativity, which ultimately leads to better end products representing more people's needs. And a cute story about that, I once heard from someone at Google, is when YouTube mobile app first came out, the first version of YouTube mobile app, they were getting a really weird bug complaint where people complained that they see the videos upside down. So they got more and more of these bug complaints and discovered that about 10% of their users are seeing the videos upside down. Anyone wants to guess why? Any idea? Okay, so it turns out that lefties move their phone in the opposite direction. I do it like this, but they do it like this. So they didn't have any lefties on their early development teams, and that's why it happened. And if that's not enough, apart from the financial aspect, it has been found that companies that neglect to prioritize diversity have a 3 times higher rate of dropout in the following year. So I hope we all agree now that diversity matters. It really does. So let us begin our journey and ask, is it a natural given fact? Is it just the way it is and always have been? So do you remember our little game from before? So let's go back and ask again, why aren't there more women computer geeks to begin with? Or really, why aren't there more women in tech? So one might argue that women are naturally not as good as men in STEM fields. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So they're just less good at it to begin with. Their brains are just less logical, or alternatively, you can say that they're naturally just less drawn to major in these fields because they just don't find these fields interesting. They prefer other fields such as literature, art, education, or psychology. So to answer that, I'd like to share this graph with you. It shows the percentage of women majors in colleges in America by field throughout the years since the 1960s. And we can see that since the 60s, there's been an increasing number of women who went out to college, to medical school, law school, physical science, and computer science. And we can see that the uprising is distributed pretty much the same between all fields. Now, this makes sense because since the 60s, more and more women went out of their household to get education and acquire a job. But wait, check out this point in time in the mid-1980s. What happened there? There's something that started during these years that suddenly made their percentage drop solely in the field of computer science. Why? What was that? We'll answer that question soon. Remember this graph. I want to challenge the term natural. So what's even considered to be natural? And for that purpose, I'm going to claim that it's all a matter of perception. Let me read this quote from you, which was published at Cosmopolitan magazine back in 1967. 20 years ago, a girl could be a secretary, a social worker, or a nurse. If she was really ambitious, she could go and compete with the men, usually working harder and longer to earn less pay for the same job. Now have come the big dazzling computers and a whole new kind of work for women, programming, telling the miracle machines what to do and how to do it. Anything from predicting the weather to sending out billing notices. And if it doesn't sound like a woman's work, well, it just is. It's just like planning a dinner. You have to plan ahead and schedule everything so it's ready when you need it. Programming requires patience and the ability to handle detail. Women are naturals at computer programming. And it's about time because this is the age of the computer girls. Hard to imagine, right? But it's true. And so many things have changed since. So back then, when this was written, computers weren't as widespread as they are today. The field of programming was just getting started and was perceived completely different as it is today. Coding meant pulling plugs and directly using machine code, using tons of ones and zero switches on huge computers, mainly used by the army or in big offices. No one had a computer at home. It was unperceivable, not to mention having one in your phone or hand watch. It kind of looked like being an operator for the phone company or a typing secretary. And that's why it was actually perceived like a non-prestigious profession, more suitable for women, whereas hardware engineering was more perceived as a male profession. And the thing is that it was even harder than it is today, because doing it meant being able to compute in your head and remember huge chunks of data and streams. So that's actually where the term coders originally came from. And here's another surprising fact. Anyone here know, does anybody here know who this is? Okay, so this is Ada Lovelace, and she was an English countess from the 19th century. She was a mathematician and a writer, and she wrote the first ever mathematical algorithm. It wasn't the same code as we know it today, but she wrote a series of instructions, or an algorithm, which was meant to run on a theoretical machine, which wasn't even invented yet, in order to compute and solve real mathematical problems. And that's why she's considered to be the world's first programmer. And this is Admiral Grace Hopper from the US Navy. And she was part of the team that developed COBOL, which was one of the higher level programming languages using English words instead of just numbers. And she was also the one who invented the first compiler. Legend has it that she was also the one who invented the term bug after she found a moth that was stuck on her computer back in 1947. And you can see here in this picture where she logs the first actual case of a bug being found. And her team called their work debugging. So after we took a stroll down memory lane, let's go back to the 1980s. So do you remember this graph? We asked what happened there that made the percentage of women majoring in computer science suddenly drop, and only for this field. So do you remember when I said that once upon a time, computers were huge and you can only find them in offices and for military purposes? So in the mid-1980s, the first personal computers arrived and started showing up in US homes in significant numbers. The first computers were Apple II, IBM PC, and later on the Lisa and the Macintosh by Apple were introduced. And they started to market them on a large scale to make sure they expand fast. Let us examine a bunch of commercials from that era to see who were that target audience of those first computers. Fly where no man has flown before. What kind of a man buys his own computer? How to buy a personal computer? For your boy with dad's wallet, obviously. And this one shows a man working while his wife is baking in the kitchen and looking at him with awe. And here's an especially sexist one saying, 2 bytes are better than 1. And he uses the computer as a decoy to seduce women. So it's not like Apple or IBM explicitly said, no, it's not for girls, it's not for women. No one says that. But the message was passed nevertheless. And the girls started thinking, well, I guess it's probably just not for me. In addition, in the 1980s, movies like Weird Science, Revenge of the Nerds, and War Games came out, and the plots were basically always the same. This awkward, geeky boy genius gets tech savvy to triumph and win the girl. So that image of that computer geek, that hacker, that gamer I mentioned before when we started, had started to form. In accordance to that, in the 1990s, researcher Jane Margolis interviewed hundreds of computer science students and found that families were much more likely to buy computers for their boys rather for their girls, even when their girls were really interested in computers. And I remember myself, I grew up during the 90s. I have 2 older brothers. And I really remember the day my parents brought home our first computer. And I remember I was so excited. It was like this huge box, and I just couldn't wait to see what's in it. And it was like a shiny new computer with like this revolutionary technology called CD-ROM. And then they put it in my brother's room. He didn't let me sit in his room and play with it. And that was it. So looking back, and I don't know if it's related or not, but throughout my entire career in tech, I always had that sense that maybe I don't really belong here. Maybe it's just a matter of time because before someone will find me out as a fraud. Sorry, this is a picture of that computer. So to summarize this part, since the 1980s, that image of the computer geek just kept on growing, reinforcing itself as the years went by. And the girls and the women thought, well, I guess it's probably just not for me. I don't want to go and be the only girl there. But this tells us the story of the formation of the computer geek stereotype. But why does it matter anyhow? So the problem is that stereotypes affect and curve our perception, even if we don't know it does, and even if we don't think it does. And these create biases. Unfortunately, these biases are usually totally unconscious. So one might argue, well, these biases, they don't affect me. I don't see men versus women. I see people. So I like to show you this video. Try to solve this riddle. And please, if you know the answer.
As part of an experiment to explore the human mind,
Can you see the
we
video?
asked 22
Hear it?
people to solve the same riddle and
We
record it.
can. Yes.
Feel free to participate also. Are you ready?
The riddle. A father is about to bring his son to a job interview, applying for a position at a large stockbrokers company in the city. Just as they arrive at the company's parking lot, the son's phone rings. He looks at his father, who says, "Go ahead, answer it." The caller is the trading company CEO, who says, "Good luck, son, you've got this." The son ends the call and once again looks at his father, who is still next to him in their car. How is this possible?
He gets a call from the CEO, but it says,
"Good luck, son."
But he was next to him.
So it's not the father.
I think it was probably an audio recording of his father.
Maybe he made a demo tape.
Like he has two fathers.
This is a hard one.
Maybe it's a word joke, like it's the grandfather of the son.
No, I think his name is Son.
I don't know.
Maybe it's just like an old man, calling a younger guy son.
I have no idea.
The answer. It's his mother.
Oh, that's so stupid. Yes, of course.
Ah!
I should have thought of that, yes.
The CEO is a woman.
so I'm biased in a sense. Is this about diversity and inclusion?
That's really mind-blowing, actually.
So I always thought that I'm not very sexist. But in spite of that, I think these subconscious biases are there in everyone's mind.
How much bias I still have in terms of thinking that the CEO needs to be a man.
Yeah, I definitely was picturing a man.
They identify with males more than females these days.
Why can't women also be CEOs or doctors or, right?
When I think about a CEO or someone that's high positioned within a company, I mostly think of men.
And it's a shame, I think.
And that's so weird because I'm a CEO and I'm a woman.
And I want to be a CEO. Why didn't I think about that? Crap.
I believe women can absolutely be CEOs.
And that's definitely something that we should work on, especially when you're saying that so many people have been told this riddle and most people haven't gotten it.
Women make great CEOs and great leaders as well. And yet only 5% of Fortune 500 CEOs are women.
Who knew the answer to that riddle? Anyone? Okay, so don't feel bad because we saw in the video that really it happens to everyone. That's just how our brains work. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. We are all biased. Even the woman CEO in the video didn't think a woman can be a CEO. So evolution has made us that way, where we categorize people and we split them into groups. It makes it easier for us to analyze and to judge people because it requires less storage space in our brains. But the good news is that biases may affect our perception, but you can take action to curb them so you can see people clearly. And this brings us to the second part of my talk, what each and every one of you can actually do in order to attract more girls and women into the field. So what we're going to do from now on is to go through all stages of the funnel, which stretches throughout our lives and our careers, and see how we can make a difference on every step of the way. So let us start with the first stage of early childhood and adolescence. Research shows that girls are starting to lose their interest in computers relatively early, around junior high. So if you want to get their interest early, especially for the parents here, the best way to do that is by using gamification, because both boys and girls learn best from playing games. And there are many tools that you can use, but it's important that they will target girls and will be as gender neutral and as they can be, and use characters that they may like. For instance, if you have code.org activities where there are tons of games you can use, some of them are aimed to target girls and even young girls. For example, by using characters like Anna and Elsa. So the main thing here is to know your audience and pick the ones that match their interests. There are also others like Code Monkey, Scratch, Scratch Junior, depending on the girl's age. Bottom line here is that it's all about perception and knowing your audience to make it appealing for them. And if you remember the ads we saw before from the 80s, you probably think, well, it's probably not relevant anymore. We should know better by now, right? Well, I beg to differ. Let us examine a few ads for kids coding classes I personally previously got on Facebook because I was targeted as a mom. And let us review who are they trying to attract. These are all in Hebrew, but the images speak for themselves, I guess. All real ads from the last year. Moving forward, college students. Here as well, it's all a matter of perception, and we actually need to rebrand the field. There's an image, mostly common amongst girls at these ages, that programming is like a gray, boring field where you just sit around in your cubicle all day long, not really talking to people, just keeping to yourself. But that's so not true, because this is a super creative field where you can create awesome and amazing products. And from my personal experience, it really helps showing cool projects, apps, or websites that have a positive impact and solve real life problems. Take, for example, the case of one college who went from 10% female computer science majors to 40% just by renaming a course previously called Introduction to Programming in Java to Creative Approaches to Problem Solving in Science and Engineering using Python. It's true that they changed the language, but the course syllabus was generally the same. In addition, the notion that there's no human communication, no human interaction is also totally wrong, because you communicate all day long with multiple stakeholders in the company, with product, with QA, customers, and obviously your team members. So it's really important to break this false assumption. Lastly, we can create interdisciplinary combinations because a recent study showed that interdisciplinary courses with computer science or AI, along with biology or medicine or climate, like saving the bees with AI, significantly improved coding interest, engagement, and even self-efficacy for female students, as opposed to plain computer science or data science. Next step in line is when they first enter the tech industry to junior positions. Reshma Saujani, the founder of Girls Who Code organization, tells the story in her excellent TED Talk about a common phenomenon she noticed happening frequently. The girls get a coding exercise. After a while, some of them tell the teacher they don't know how to solve it. The teacher will look at our screen and she'll see a blank text editor. If she presses undo a few times, she'll see that her student wrote some code and then deleted it completely. All or nothing. And it's always the same story. The student came close, but she thought it wasn't good enough and decided to delete it altogether. And this happens because women tend to underestimate their abilities and performance and to overjudge themselves, regardless of their actual performance. So studies have labeled this pattern as the confidence gap, and this will lead to asking less money for the same job, or the famous imposter syndrome, which is indeed more common among women. So be aware of this phenomenon while interviewing and try to make women feel as comfortable as you can. When you're interviewing someone, notice how she describes herself and tells about the stuff she's done. Even if she says she doesn't know how to answer your question, try to find more about what she does know. Maybe she knows 90% of the answer, but didn't say anything because she didn't get it all and she was afraid to get it wrong. Remember the undo example. And now we're going to discuss how you can actually attract women to senior positions in your company starting today. I keep hearing people say, yeah, we really want to hire more women, but women just do not apply. We keep our job postings open for all, but we only get men's applications. So first thing you can do, which I usually call quick wins, is to edit your job descriptions. Number one, you need to write only your real must-haves requirements as a must-haves and other criteria as nice to have. So if you're saying you're looking for someone with at least 8 years of experience, but you'll settle with someone who has only 4, don't write 8 as a minimal requirement. That's because research has shown that women tend to apply to job descriptions only if they match 100% of the criteria, whereas men usually settle for 60%. It's similar to that undo example. Number 2, choose your gender neutral language carefully. So if you're using a language which is not gender neutral, such as Hebrew, for example, do not use the masculine form. Make your message even clearer by saying you're looking for a female developer, then add a disclaimer at the end saying the ad may state you're looking for a woman, but is open to all genders. And from my experience, these kinds of ads usually get more attention from women, and they share it with each other on social media because they feel like you're approaching them specifically. In addition, please avoid superlatives and terms like ninja, rock star, superstar, which usually correspond more with male applicants. Women rarely identify with these words, and it will probably make them withdraw from applying. Number 3, if your job descriptions include images, please verify these images are inclusive and include images of women. Let's see some examples. So here are a few good examples. All are diverse, at least 50% women, and also diverse in terms of race or age. And it can even be a genderless ad, like the green one here. And these are all bad examples. So again, all real ones, only men, white men, a ninja developer, and he's a programmer, and she's a designer. Another thing which is also crucial for making your is making your office culture inclusive for parents. Family-friendly workplaces are not only attractive for moms, but they are also important for parents in general, and even singles who prefer to have a good work-life balance. So how to do that? Number 1, measure progress and efficiency, but not working hours. Be flexible. Flexible hours, flexible for being able to work it from home. This actually became a necessity in this day and age. Flexible meeting hours, for example, limit the number of meetings taking place after 5 p.m. And paid parental leave for both parents, which is probably the biggest step an organization can take in order to promote gender equality. And lastly, the last part of leading positions. And by the way, this is exactly where Women on Stage is aiming to. So first thing is to create more female role models. That's really why I founded Women on Stage. And I wanted to give visibility for that existing talent. So if you're wondering how to push yourself forward, know that you can be the role model yourself. You can be the role model you once needed to see when you were just starting out. You can become the role model you need to see today. You can be the role model for your daughters, for your sons, for the women in your community. Because even if you don't know it, you do have a voice and a story to share. And the best way to do that is by being proactive in your work. Say yes, even when you're not sure how you'll go through with it, and figure out later. Produce content, write blogs, go to meetups and conferences, network with other people, writing social media about your work. Treat yourself as a brand you need to sell. Men do it all the time, so we should too. But sometimes we feel we're not original enough, we're not interesting enough, everything was already done before. That's not true. Your stories are unique. Your experiences are unique. Use your voice. Say what you think, because your opinion matters. So let us recap all stages. At childhood, we will use gamification and know our audience to keep girls motivated. For students, we should rebrand the field, emphasize creativity, communication, interdisciplinarity, and real-life problem solving. At the entry level, we'll remember the confidence gap and the understory. For senior positions, we'll edit our job descriptions, create an inclusive working environment for parents, and compare employment terms. And as for leading positions, we'll create more role models and publicly share our work. Have our voice heard out loud. And remember that it's all a matter of perception. And I hope that the next time you'll be asked to imagine a computer geek, you'll be able to imagine someone who looks like this. Thank you so much. I invite you all to follow me and Women on Stage and check out this QR code with all of our resources. Thank you. Are you still here?
Yes, I mean, we are still here. So thank you so much. Sorry, it always takes a second to unmute. But thank you so much. This was great. I always love seeing those images of like how we got here, and you forget like right, how much advertising and how much we frame things has been part of the problem, and that subconscious I mean,
Exactly.
it really is advertising, right? You forget how
Totally.
powerful it is.
And that's how we can solve it. If we show like the opposite advertising, if we show a few examples of the other way around, then that's how we feel like it's for us. Then that's how we see an example of someone really, 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 really smart, and we want to be like her. And we get that it's possible, because only if you can see it, you can be it.
Representation matters. It's so true. Like that's why we love having these platforms for our women in tech, to be able to say, here, just be you. You don't have to do it, but make sure you're visible and provide those resources, and making sure people know that they're available. So I really appreciate that message that you brought, because it's one of the things that, I know I'm passionate about. I know a lot of us here are very passionate about that as well. So it's really great to see all of that reminder.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you so much. Any questions, by the way? I'll be happy to.
Yeah. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to unmute. You say hello.
I'm curious who was here.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a couple of people that are being quiet. That's fine, but we're glad that you're here. If you have other feedback, let us know. You have way to contact Moran, and we'll be posting this later on our YouTube channel. So if there's anything you wanted to go back or share with other people, feel free to do that. We have our next event in January, so keep an eye out for that meetup, and we hope to see you then. Thank you again, Moran, for speaking today. This was great. I love the presentation. So thank you so much, and thank you all for being here. And with that, we'll let you go. Enjoy the rest of your day.